They're here. They're coming. Stay off the road. I don't know. I'm just pulling something.
Brace yourself.
Brace yourself. What is up? Welcome on into the live stream. This is Ether's Elephant, joined by the Marvelous Wonder Preston. Marvelous Wonder podcast, not podcast. Do you call it podcast still, or is it just Marvelous Wonder?
No, just Marvelous Wonder. Podcast is hopefully to help people, if they see me in comments here and there, just be curious, like, oh, this is a channel I can go click on and there's stuff there.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, not really much of a podcast, more like video essays.
Yeah, and great stuff over there. I'm sure many of you joining on are fully aware. If you're not, go check out Marvelous Wonder. But we have lots of things to talk about. In fact, let me get to today's show, because it's a good one. On today's show, we have Through Elephant's Eyes, who is Satan's real brother? This is especially relevant since we have a lot of Christians who are attacking LDS theology. We'll get into some reactions. In fact, Trunk Treasures, all non-Mormon dogs go to heaven. So all dogs go to heaven, but apparently only the non-Mormon ones go to heaven. We'll talk about that. Anti-mormons react to the Michigan shooting. I think you want to tune into that because I pulled up some of the reactions that some of the biggest names in anti-Mormon content said, what some of them have said about the shooting in Michigan. I think it's quite interesting. So you'll want to stick around for the reaction to that. And last, big Ear Bulletin breaking news. Speaking of anti-Mormons, John Dehlin makes our breaking news today. John Dehlin, LDS apologist? Is he becoming the apologist that we all knew he would be one day? I'm just kidding. But
the Alma the Younger.
The Alma the Younger. Is he coming back? There's some interesting things that he said that I'm like, this is worth sharing. It's anyway, you're just gonna have to tune in. But let's get into the first segment. This is Through. Okay, so Preston, we made this video together, Satan's brother. And by the way, teaser for everyone. We also have made another video that is going to be bigger, badder, cooler than even this one, as cool as it was. But basically, I wanted to talk about the critique that we get from Christians that Satan and Jesus are brothers. What? No, they can't be brothers, right? That's against the Bible, they say. That's terrible. And when you actually look at their theology about Satan and the fact that he was created by a timeless, spaceless, omnipotent God that's omniscient and knows the future, it's almost like, well, I mean, why is it such a critique that they're brothers, which we can talk about what that actually means, when their theology kind of sets up like Satan as being this created entity that God gave all these special powers to just harass and destroy his children. So, Preston, what do you think about the video? What did you think about some of this stuff we were talking about?
Oh, the video was great. I just think it's funny how they almost kind of drop that line. Well, Mormons think that Jesus and Satan are brothers, and then they feel like it's just this mic drop where to us, it almost like doesn't even compute why they have a problem with that.
It really doesn't.
Unless you think through like kind of what is beneath that objection from them. But like, I don't know, at a glance, it's not the mic drop that they feel like it is.
Well, for you said that the reason they hate it so much is because it implies that Jesus is a created being, but it really doesn't imply that. I mean, when you actually look at the doctrine. In fact, funny thing going on in Twitter, by the way. I don't know if you saw this. Are you even on Twitter?
No, I think I have an account, but I haven't been on there in ages.
Stay away. I'm just kidding. Okay, so on Twitter, I saw just today, I think, Luke Hansen of Word Radio, from the good people of Word Radio, shared something about the Mormon page, like the Mormon theology page on Wikipedia, basically says that Jesus is a created being, and he's like, this is wrong, they don't even know our theology. And in fact, that might relate to just like a few days earlier, Elon Musk retweeted some news article that said, I saw this, I don't know if it's related exactly, but it said, meet the man who's behind 33% of all of Wikipedia. So apparently there's like one guy who just like does all of the Wikipedia work. And I think Elon Musk was sharing that to say like, hey, this is like a scary thing. Anyway, but apparently the page about LDS theology says that Jesus is created. And so Luke was like, hey, we need to like nip this in the bud. We got to stop this. This is like, it like people don't even understand this. Like the people who are writing this don't know what they're doing. And then there were some people fighting him. Someone was like, oh, you guys, when you say he's eternal, you're really just meaning he's going to live forever into the future. You know, and then he's like, no, we think, you know, everyone lived before and after. Anyway, so it's kind of weird because I feel like the pain that I feel about these Christians talking about Satan and Jesus are brothers and all these talking points is some of them just are lies. I mean, maybe they're not like straight up lying, but like they're just like not informed and just repeating these old things that they keep repeating. Do you get that sense at all? Do you get some kind of frustration when you hear like the same, like, you guys think Jesus was spiritually born from one of Heavenly Father's plural wives?
Yeah. They definitely feel like they are just the easy stumbling blocks that are thrown out there, and people stumble on them. When I wish we could just zoom out a little bit and look at the bigger picture, it's so much more amazing than what they realize because they're busy tripping over this little stumbling block of, that they also, people will say it in a negative tone, like Jesus and Satan are brothers, like that clip you showed with Cliff Kineckley, where he's like, Jesus and Satan are brothers. What? No. And it's like, okay, but let's talk about what that actually means. If we could just zoom out and look at the bigger picture, it'd be so helpful. But yeah, they're oftentimes in these little back and forths we get into in the comments, it's people that are just easily tripping over that stumbling block that somebody threw out there ages ago, and it's still out there. And you had, like you said, it's even on Wikipedia.
You had quite the back and forth with one of the comments in this video, if I remember, which was pretty fun. But okay, breaking news here, by the way, people. Fun fact: Preston and I served in the same mission. Super cool. Yeah, it was really fun the other day when we were talking, just kind of reminiscing about like where we were at different. Well, like, we walked the same streets, people. Super cool. And I don't know about you, but like obviously there's a lot of Catholics in Chile. That's where we served. But there's a lot of like evangelicals and like really, Bible bashing evangelicals. And I actually fell in love with like the people who just love Jesus down there and like really take the Bible to heart and la palabra, you got to stick to the word. What was your experience with evangelicals?
Oh, I wish I would have known a little bit better where they were coming from with what they were saying. But as a missionary, I was just always completely frustrated. But I was really dedicated to no Bible bashing. And so when I had a companion that tended to Bible bash, I would always like, nip that in the bud. Let's just go away. This isn't a great conversation for us to be having. It's not going to go anywhere. But I would love to go back now that I understand a little bit more about where they're coming from and have a more productive conversation with them. But yeah, I was just mostly as a missionary, just frustrated.
Yeah. I guess was the opposite in some sense. Cause it was some of my favorite people to talk to. Cause I loved it when people would we had the baseline that we believed in basic Christianity. And then I love just I wouldn't say what I did was Bible bash, but I love just kind of talking with them back and forth. And I would try and find like things that we agree on. And that's kind of why I kind of fell in love with like their authentic belief.
See, so, one of my favorites was, this wasn't the evangelicals, it was the Catholics, but we got to a point at one point in my mission where our approach for people, and this probably wasn't super effective, but we would just ask them like, hey, do you believe in Jesus? Just to start a conversation. And it was really funny how often we got the response, no, soy católico, just like immediately ready to dismiss us and not even realizing what we're asking. Just like, no, I'm Catholic.
Yeah. we would sometimes tease them, that giant like Catholic temple that's downtown.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I'm Catholic. Like, oh, so you attend church in that great and spacious building over there? Yes, I do. Yeah. Like, oh. It was always so funny. I love it. I got to say, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, to clarify, we did not serve at the same time. We were a couple years apart. So I had a brand new mission president right at the end of my mission. And you served with him, right?
Yep.
At the start of your mission?
Yep. So good stuff. And I found, I don't know. I just loved the other Christian religions down there. There's another, most Catholics, when you approach, would basically say what you said. You know, they wouldn't even like say that they believed in Jesus, just like, I was born Catholic, I'm dying Catholic kind of a thing. But I found my entire mission, like the people who would defend their faith were the Jehovah's Witnesses. The evangelicals would just be like, we're diehards. The Catholics would be like, nah, I'm just, it's tradition. But I found the few sincere Catholics that I found were like some of the best at their theology is great. Some of the best at kind of like defending their faith. But I think I literally only talked to like one or two people my entire mission that were Catholics that like actually believed in the theology, that actually understood it, that actually wanted to talk about it. And it was fantastic, but like most of them were just like, yeah, it's tradition.
Yeah. It was pretty cultural. We do have so much in common with them, but it was pretty cultural. I did see a lot of evangelical street preachers and then the Jehovah's Witness door knockers,
Jehovah's Witnesses, I had one of their Bibles that I found inside of our apartment one time, just to be funny. I'd like when they would come proselytize to us as missionaries in our little house. And I'd walk out there holding their Bible just to be funny. But I was always super nice to them. In fact, I wanted to go to their events, but never could. We got a super chat from Kiori. Kiori, by the way, I finished your book, man. So thank you so much for writing it. I can tell you put a lot of work into it. You don't need any of my critiques. I'm just going to tell you that thank you. That was so cool. I think you have a really cool premise that you're attacking there. Basically, his book is all about the first few chapters of Nephi and how it kind of aligns with like ancient temple ceremonies. Like he kind of talks about how, Nephi, he goes through this process of cleansing, then he gets dressed in Laban's clothes, which are symbolic, then he goes and kind of passes through this veil to get the brass plates. And it's just, you can tell, Kiori, reading the book, my most positive takeaway is you can just tell that you love the Book of Mormon. And I love seeing that in the book. So
I want this book. I love that kind of stuff. That reminds me of the the Covenant Path, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
The Covenant Path in the Book of Mormon, or like the temple in the Book of Mormon.
Yeah. So I think it's right up in that.
Send me that book.
But he says, I've never heard Protestants take pot shots at other Protestants about my creeds are better than your creeds. Well, that's because, Kiori, they all have the same creeds, right? They all have like the same few creeds that they accept, and then the rest of it is very like, you can believe what you want about how baptism should be put into practice, kind of a thing. It is pretty interesting, and they especially don't like us over the Catholics because we're like, no, if you're going to join our church, you have to be rebaptized. Like we believe in the priesthood power. So there's kind of a difference, but their creeds, I tweeted out recently, speaking of Twitter, no one sees what I tweet on Twitter, so I'm just kind of tweeting into the void. One of my biggest takeaways, and Word Radio talked about this, and I thought, I was like, man, kind of hurt my heart a little bit to see some of this reaction to the Michigan shooting, because, I have the Christian community has a special place in my heart, especially because of my experiences down in Chile. And it was a little eye-opening for me, honestly, to see just the nasty take that people had about the Michigan shooting from Christians. And Word Radio talked about this, how it's like a lot of members of the church that have their eyes have been opened, or whatever verbiage they used. And I'm like, I'm kind of one of those people. Like, I feel a little bit like deceived and betrayed. And I was looking at the scriptures, and it just kept going through my mind, what Jesus said to Joseph Smith in the first vision. He said, the creeds are an abomination, essentially, that they're, what does he say? Their hearts are far from me. Oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking on it.
They draw near to me with their lips, but their hearts
they
are far
draw
from
near
me.
to me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. By the way, that's something that Elder Holland quoted to us while we were on the mission. He came and said stuff about that. So yeah, it's like they draw near to me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. I'm like, holy cow. Like, I gotta be honest, like, when I read the New Testament, and we'll get into this a little bit coming up, because we're gonna look at some comments, because some people say like Satan and Jesus being brothers is like non-biblical. But when I read the New Testament, especially the New Testament, I just think, to me, and obviously I'm biased because I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, right? But even if I like try and remove that as much as possible, it's like, I just don't see, like, anything Jesus taught wasn't about theology. It was all about like action and what you should do. He even straight up says explicitly, "This shall men know that ye are my disciples, that ye love one another." And it's like, what is true Christianity? And it's certainly, in my opinion, not anything about creeds. Like, I don't see that in the New Testament. But anyway, what are your thoughts on that, Preston, before I get
Well,
too
I actually just made a video on this.
Yeah.
Put it out a few days ago. Cliff Connectley talking about how the theology is not as important as what you're actually doing.
Right. And then go ahead.
And then, he has a lot of sound bites and clips of him online talking about the theology that he thinks does matter, right? Which is like the creeds.
Right.
But it's interesting because I look at the New Testament and I think you're right. So much of what Jesus taught was about how do we follow him, not theology. But I kind of divided up into his, if you love me, keep my commandments, or love God being the first great commandment, loving your neighbor being the second commandment. And just like in the video I just put out, my message is, look, both of these things actually do matter. Like what you believe and what you do, they both matter. And I think what we see a lot with our conversations with creedal Christians is a really heavy emphasis on the creed and the belief, the theology. And if you get that right, I think in our church, we're definitely more, we're both, but we're heavier on the what do you do side, right? It's like start following Christ and your belief will sort itself out.
Or, I mean, well, here's a little Jordan Peterson for you, I suppose, Is it possible to act in a way that is in contrary to your beliefs? Because I don't necessarily think that it is. At least I kind of subscribe to that philosophical point where, like, what you believe is actually how you act, which is why someone like Jordan Peterson audaciously will say that a lot of atheists aren't actually atheists because they live in such a way that suggests that they believe that other people are, children of God to some extent. And so when it, and Jordan Peterson, I always ask the question, like, what does belief mean? Like, he doesn't say I believe because he's afraid of what that means, which I think is a little cowardice. But, I understand at the same time, it's like, how do you know what you believe besides just kind of looking at how you put that into practice in your daily life? You know what I mean? So is it possible that, like, the belief in, like, certain theologies, whatever, really actually don't matter unless it's a belief that is intertwined with your action? Because I don't know if, like, honestly, like, the Trinity, if someone believes in, like, the triune God is, like, they're technically one thing, but three separate persons in one being versus three separate beings in one Godhead, like, does that change how you act day to day? Probably not too much, I would think. And so, like, at the end of the day, how are you acting? I think it, like, is much more, like, I don't, like, they're so intertwined. Like, I don't know if you can completely separate them, but I get what you're saying too, though. Like,
well, I do. Yeah, I do think that. I mean, I agree with you for the most part. Like, I don't think your belief can really be divorced from, or like what you say you believe can really be all that divorced from what you do. Like, what you actually believe is manifested in what you're doing. But I also think, and this is why I also have another video labeling the Trinity as true Christianity's biggest heresy. After I made that video, I discovered a quote from Bruce R. McConkie that says the same thing.
Heck yeah, Bruce.
But it's because I think it can actually have an impact on what you do if it limits your view of the purpose of life and the plan of salvation. I think that's exactly what it does, is it, like, removes that end goal that we have of exaltation, makes that an impossibility, and then what you do doesn't matter as much. So
Speaking of drawing near to me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me, there is almost like a certain branch of Christianity that's like, basically you can do whatever you want as long as you literally speak that you accept Jesus, and I don't know how much that plays back into the Trinity, but there is kind of like this like soft Christianity, at least I would call it soft, where it's like, oh, you don't have to change anything because the whole point of life is not to do anything, just to kind of live life because you can be saved as long as you just accept Jesus in your heart. That sounds like almost exactly what I think Jesus was saying. By the way, such profound words in the first vision. It's just like, holy cow. I mean, even, like the Book of Mormon, like the stuff that came from Joseph Smith, right? To me, are clearly revelations. I just think there's so much power behind what it's saying there in light of like, especially these back and forth with other Christians. Is like, man, I am on that guy's side. I think Joseph is correct about the nature of Jesus. But let's keep talking about this as we get into the next segment. These are the hidden gems. The hidden gems. You want to stick around because we're going to talk about some of the anti-Mormon reaction to the shooting in Michigan, as well as more of this stuff about the Christian theology debate. So let's get into it. And before we get straight into that, I got to do this shout out. So the purpose of this channel is to elevate members of the church by building bridges of understanding through fun and informative content, and to help honest actors to take the church seriously by exposing limitations of critics and correcting misconceptions. And unfortunately, there's a lot of misconceptions out there. A lot of misconceptions. So thank you to the members of the channel, including Packeter members, Jacob Wardle, our oldest member of the channel. And we have a few Mammoth members, Jared Jensen, Kiori, Brooke Sabin, and Thorgus. So thank you all for contributing to the channel. All the funds go to just making better content and helping spread that message of, unity and helping people take the church more seriously. So first off, Snaggart, I saw you in there. I don't know if you're still here, but I just want to point these out. Oh, because I thought it was fun. People are saying the collab we needed but didn't deserve. Like a Batman there. I'm not wearing hockey pads. The collab I didn't see coming, but I love it. So I just had to put those out there because I thought it was fun.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. See, and there's more to come, by the way. I think I teased this earlier. But there's another video that I'm actually even more excited for than the first one we did. Actually, we filmed this one second. It was just easier to release this one on Satan first. So
that's because you have to cut so much out of the other one.
Yeah. So everyone subscribe to both channels. By the way, we're working on YouTube has a new collaboration feature. So by the time that video comes out, and if you look at the old Satan video, you should see both of our channels linked to it. So you can click subscribe to both of them. But a lot of the comments were actually quite positive on that one. There's a few you were debating with someone, but I wanted to bring up this one. Brent Davis, we don't have to read the whole thing here, but basically he says, the real question is Jesus the brother of Satan according to the Bible? What does the Bible say? It says no. The question is not, what does LDS theology say? In other words, what does Joseph Smith Jr. say? But what does the Bible say? You see, LDS theology is man/demon made. By the way, that's a theme that we'll see later on. Created by Joseph Smith Jr. and demons. The Bible, on the other hand, is from God. Mormonism equals man and demonic. Bible equals God. You Mormons have to prove and explain your stuff from your extra-biblical pseudo-scriptures and extra-biblical sources and people. Christians just go to the Bible. Your thoughts, Preston?
Oh, man. The age-old sola scriptura kind of thing. What's interesting to me with this is it's just 100% looking backwards. And, it kind of feels like the interpreting the Constitution, right? Like we have this one document that we're going to try and interpret for every new situation that we have coming up. And that's just not how the Lord works with this. And I don't know. This is like step one. If you're going to talk to a Christian, you have to deal with this. To a creedal Christian or a sola scriptura Christian, you have to deal with this.
Well, that's
this way that they're coming to it.
That I've never really understood, because they themselves disagree on a lot in the Bible. I mean, Corey was talking earlier about, the creeds. They accept the creeds, but when it actually comes to the Bible, which, by the way, the creeds aren't found in the Bible, they presuppose the creeds to interpret the Bible, but yet they still disagree on a bunch of stuff within the Bible already, like baptism, for example. But to me, and I don't know, to me, the Bible itself is not as clear as Brett Davies would like to make it. I don't think you can clearly say that the Bible says that Jesus and Satan are not brothers at all. In fact, I think it actually aligns quite well with our theology when you look at the book of Revelation at the end of the Bible there, when it's talking about kind of like a little bit of pre-earth stuff that was going on. It says that in the beginning, the Word was with God, and the Word is God. And it's talking about Jesus. That, I don't know. I just don't see any misalignment with our theology. I mean, I know we have Joe Smith translation to help clarify things, but I never see those as contradicting what's straight up in the Bible. I think to me, it gets at the spirit of what the Bible's trying to say. But I don't think it's as clear in favor of Christianity if you only look at the Bible without just accepting the creeds from your lens. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, well, I think what they want to see is all of our beliefs completely supported by, or
just explicitly said in the
founded
Bible.
In the Bible. Yeah, and it's I always go back to this statement from, I can't remember his name, one of our scholars today. I think he was on with David Snell recently, but he said our church isn't based on Scripture or the Bible. It's based on what Scripture is based on, which is ongoing apostolic revelation.
Ooh, and so I like that.
So he's in this comment saying that, well, you guys have to go to Joseph Smith to support what you believe, but it needs to be supported in the Bible. And it's we can show you how the Bible doesn't contradict what we believe, but not everything we believe is going to be 100% founded
in the Bible.
Only on what's in the Bible.
Right. Huh, yeah, it's kind of like we're cutting out the middleman. They have all these, priests and monks from back in the day who wrote down things and things were lost. And, I don't think there's really any serious argument against that, at least in a scholarly sense. And we're let's, go back to the source. We can still keep what's here, but, we base it off of what the Bible was based off of, which, it's just weird because, before the Bible existed, I just don't understand some of the line of thought that goes into this.
It really makes you wonder what Paul or somebody would think if they could time travel and see how people are talking about or viewing the Bible today. And specifically, if Paul could see how evangelical Christians kind of exalt his teachings.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I just wonder what he would say.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit here because now I wanted to dig up. This is the hidden gem part, of the segment, right? The trunk treasures. And so I wanted to look at some of the reaction of the bigger anti-Mormon channels of the Michigan shooting. So obviously, tragedy in Michigan on a Sunday where saints were shot. And it was burnt down, their church building. So just terrible stuff. And I wanted to see, okay, we have, John Dehlin, we have Alyssa Grenfeld, we have Bill Reel, we have a bunch of these people. We have Nemo, the ex-Mormon, who are making anti-content. And I wondered if they said anything about it. And some of them did. Some of them didn't. So first, real quick, I forgot about this because this is in the thumbnail. Speaking of the shooting, before we get to what the anti-Mormons said, you had people like Pastor Mark Driscoll, the anti-Mormon on the Christian side, not the ex-Mormon, but the just straight up anti-Mormon, whose tweet is still up. If he would have taken it down, I wouldn't be bringing this up, but it's still there, publicly available. You can go find it on his Twitter page. But he said, "There will be 0 Mormons in heaven. It is a demonic cult. A literal demon is on the top of every Mormon building." So this is kind of the pain that I think, at least that I'm feeling a little bit with the Christian community, because I know there's always been people like Pastor Mark Driscoll who are just kind of doing the the cult flashes to try and get attention and things like that, who I like to think really care about biblical principles and are just, maybe a little misguided in applying them. But when there's like a shooting that happens pretty close to when this tweet occurred, I'm not blaming Pastor Mark Driscoll for it, but it seems odd to me that you would leave it up and basically double down on this tweet here. Just after the shooting, he came out with that supposedly written by AI book that's designed to kind of look like the Book of Mormon in its print, like at least the cover, to say like, here's what Mormons believe, and he kind of like said, all people who are innocent shouldn't be shot, Mormons or Christians, like heavily implying that we're not Christians. And then, people are like, well, didn't you just say, this is the only tweet he has that says Mormonism is demonic, by the way. This is one of several that he says that Mormonism is demonic. But this one, he literally says there will be 0 Mormons in heaven. So like there's a lot of like othering, he's building ites, to use a Book of Mormon phrase, right? He's labeling us as like this other group that's just like, no one's going to heaven. It's a demonic cult. And it's what, like, I know there's crazies who, and you can't like blame everything on the crazy person who actually like shoots people and whatnot. But like when people like Pastor Mark Driscoll are leaving these comments up, are doubling down on these things, you have a lot of people on Twitter who are just saying, Mormonism is demonic and it's a cult and it's not Christianity. During this time, that's where a lot of my thoughts come back to me about, Joseph Smith and learning from Jesus, his own mouth, that the creeds are an abomination and they draw near to me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. But I'm talking too much. Preston, your thoughts?
Oh, well, I mean, at the very least, it's just really insensitive if you're doing something like this with the timing. But it's like you said, it's not his only tweet saying this. It's not his only, I mean, he's got, I'm not on Twitter, but I see lots of clips of Mark Driscoll saying stuff like this. But what's interesting is I live in Kentucky, and I mean, I'm around a lot of evangelical Christians. I don't know a single one, at least, that has said anything like this.
Well, so I thought you were in Ohio.
I am right across the river. You look out off my front deck, and Ohio's across the river from me.
Oh, that makes sense, because I know it's here. Okay, I gotcha.
But I don't. What I'm saying is, I don't like. I think maybe there's this online dynamic of like Mark Driscoll and people who agree with him. I personally don't know an evangelical Christian here around me that thinks this kind of thing.
Good. So, yeah. I mean, most of them are nice. Is that Twitter's not real life. I have to tell myself that.
Yeah.
It still hurts
Twitter's
to
probably
see.
The worst place, the best place to find the worst stuff.
Yeah.
So
it just hurts to see that like these people are literally using the name of Christ, saying Christian.
Yes. No, and I agree.
Like, I don't know.
I agree. And I've got a response to Mark Driscoll's foreword in his book coming out soon.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember seeing that. So everyone go subscribe so you can see that. And his book, I don't know. I don't really care, but this doesn't look like Christianity to me, and it's sad. In fact, let's compare and contrast that to the people who are ex-members of the faith. So let's get into that. So I teased it out a little bit already. Here's Alyssa Grenfell. She says, I'm horrified by the attack on the LDS congregation in Michigan. I have a strong belief in freedom of speech and of religion. We must be united in confronting and rejecting the violence and terror that would undermine those freedoms. As someone who left the Mormon church, I wish she would say the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but whatever, and speaks critically about the organization, I want to be absolutely clear. Nothing can ever justify violence against people for what they believe. Some of my closest loved ones are members of this church. I spent 20 years as a member. Seeing this senseless violence within the community is heartbreaking. Mormon or ex-Mormon, we are all a part of the human family. My heart is with the victims, their families, and everyone in the community who is grieving right now. I actually think that this was a nice thing for Alyssa Grenfell to say. She's obviously attacking the church a lot, but I think this was pretty clear and strong rejection of violence. I'm glad she said it, as opposed to some other people who were radio silent on the matter. And I thought this was kind of refreshing, like people can criticize us if they want, I suppose. I think some of her criticisms are just like just laughable, honestly. And I'm gonna be making some content here soon, but I appreciate this. I like, this is more of like, I would rather see this. To me is more Christian than what Mark Driscoll has been saying. And this is a self-proclaimed atheist,
Well, and she's also pretty firmly in that Mormonism is an evil cult kind of rut with her, not rut, but her content definitely takes advantage of that kind of an approach, right?
Very, yes.
And so seeing something like this from her versus something like that last statement we saw from Mark Driscoll. Yeah, I agree. That's refreshing.
And at the end of the day, Alyssa Grenfell, she's running a business, a lucrative business. And in that sense, like, hey, she's making money. Good for her in that sense. She's not anything other than just an entertainer. She's just trying to entertain people. And she says some ridiculous things. A lot of it is actually, I don't know, I'll be making some content about it, but like a lot of the stuff she says is kind of just her experience. Some of it, like, she does a lot of hyperbole and crap, but she's just an entertainer. And so I like, she's not like leading a congregation as far as I'm aware. She's just making money off of the cult industry, the cult corn.
Yeah.
And I think it's unfortunate because I think she's spreading misinformation. I hate to use that buzzword, or some lies and misconceptions about the church. But at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, this is what I would like to see. Like Mark Driscoll, imagine if he had said this exact same thing. I'm horrified by the attack. I believe in freedom of speech and religion. This is terrible. None of this crap about like, I don't know, like, hey, just so you know, here's a book that I'm releasing like the day after people got murdered.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I tried to look at some other places, and I didn't look everywhere completely exhaustive. So people in the chat, if you could tell me if you found any. This was like the only anti-Mormon main person. It's not like I looked through all of them that had like a statement about the shooting in Michigan. I didn't see anything from John Dehlin. I don't recall seeing anything from Nemo. Maybe he said something. Don't take everything. Don't take it like 100%. Like this, take it with a grain of salt. Is what I'm trying to say, because it's not like I like did the best research here. But point is, this one I found easily. The other ones I didn't really find. Maybe they're there. Maybe they're on Twitter instead of YouTube. I mostly just looked at some YouTube stuff, and I don't know. I'm a little disappointed in that. Like John Dehlin made some posts about, President Nelson passing away. I just didn't see anything about the Michigan shooting directly, as far as I remember.
Yeah, same with Nemo, I think. And I don't really, I don't, you guys know my channel, or any of you who knows my channel, I don't really do much with the Ex-Mormon stuff. So I don't keep an eye on that, but I did see Nemo had at least a few different videos when President Nelson passed away, but I didn't see anything about the shooting. Yeah.
Yeah, you mostly stick in the Christian and theology and philosophy and some atheist realm, I suppose, not the X. There's a whole spectrum of like atheist, Christian, active member of the church, ex-Mormon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all kind of circles back on each other. It's the ring. So anyway, good for Alyssa. I wish we would have seen more stuff from the others, but I don't know. It's just like, if you're gonna make content that basically is just attacking a set of beliefs over and over and over again, and then a shooting happens, I think you are obligated to say something to your audience, at least, to say like, hey, this is terrible, we're sad, we might disagree with these people, but we still love these people. She has a lot of people that she loves that are members of the church, is what she said. It's like, yeah, and everyone who's left the church does. So anyway, okay, speaking of John Dehlin, let's get into the breaking news where John Dehlin actually may be an LDS apologist. But let's see what it is.
Run.
So John Dehlin, of course, is the host of the Mormon Stories podcast, a giant podcast that makes quite a bit of money and is very, very professionally produced and is very against the church nowadays, unlike its original inception. But yeah, it's it's just people telling their 5-6 hour story. Oh my gosh, about how they slowly left the church and became awoken to the ideas of the church for the first time and felt deceived and blah blah blah. It's a lot of the same story over and over, so it kind of gets boring, even for people who are, I don't know, originally enjoyed that. It's like, okay. But interestingly enough, here's what he said that I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is interesting. John Dehlin says, I've been operating under the following understanding regarding Joseph Smith's evolving views on the Godhead and how his allegedly evolving views impacted changes to his first vision and the Book of Mormon. So, a little background here. One of the main critiques, or not a main critique, one popular critique that some people have to demonstrate that Joseph Smith was inventing this theology as he went, was they say that he had the first vision, he wrote the Book of Mormon, and then he was like, you know what, I think they're separate beings, and went back and edited them to, align with his newly developed thoughts. Which, by the way, as someone who has read the entire 1830s edition of the Book of Mormon, the criticism of the Book of Mormon being Trinitarian is so shallow, I just can't believe, like, my goodness. So in the first books of Nephi, there was a few changes that were made that inserted the words, the Son of the Eternal Father, when it was talking about Jesus. I think this happens at most 4 times. So in the original, it says Jesus, the Eternal God, Jesus, the Eternal Father, in the beginning of the Book of Mormon. And Joseph Smith later inserted Jesus, the Son of the Eternal Father. So the Son of was one of the edits to the Book of Mormon. I have a whole video talking about edits to the Book of Mormon and actually how that might indicate that it is authentic. So you have to check that out. But point being, I read the Book of Mormon, the 1830s edition of the Book of Mormon, and I carefully, specifically tried to pay attention to that particular critique. And you get past the first few chapters of Nephi, which, by the way, I don't think that means it's Trinitarian at all. Like, that statement, I think, is actually true. Jesus is the Eternal Father in the sense that, like we've always said, they are the Godhead, and Jesus is the Father of us spiritually when we become born again. It's not anything different than what has always been taught. But, like, the Book of Mormon almost explicitly is not Trinitarian later on. Like maybe you could say it doesn't completely disavow Trinitarianism, but like later on, there's definitely parts in there from the original 1830s version that are not Trinitarian and are quite the opposite of that. Anyway, so I just have to kind of like laugh at like these ideas that like the changes to the Book of Mormon. Like they're talking about the first 2 books and disregarding the rest of it that like doesn't have nearly as many changes. Anyway, go watch the video if you're thinking about or worried about the changes. Anyway, first vision though, on the other side, I'm sorry, I'm doing a lot of background here. Multiple accounts of the first vision. One of the first vision accounts was the 1832 version of the first vision, and it doesn't mention there being 2 distinct beings. It just says he talked with the Lord. And so that's kind of where this criticism comes from. So he operates under this assumption. So the theory is that he was inventing it, kind of went back, was like, oh, I'm going to like write a new first vision that says there were 2 because now I think there's 2. I'm going to edit the Book of Mormon because now I think there's 2. It doesn't hold much water. And he's starting to realize that. So he says, here's my evolving view. Okay, so in the 1820s, early 1830s, Joseph believed, this is what he thinks. This is his theory. He believed that God and Jesus were essentially the same, Trinitarian. He wrote this type of God into the Book of Mormon. When he dictated the 1832 first vision account, he said the Lord visited him because he didn't yet believe that Jesus and God were separate beings. Then at some point in the 1830s, he evolved to believe that Jesus and God were separate beings. This evolution was then written back into the Book of Mormon and the 1838 first vision account. Okay. But then he watched a podcast by Informed Saints Pod, which is run by Jasmine Rapley, her husband, and I'm blanking on his name. It's a new podcast. You have to check it out. Smoot. Yeah, that's the one. Thank you. And he watched that episode because their first episode was about the first vision. And I got to be honest, when I saw it, I was like, okay. I rolled my eyes a little bit because I'm thinking, how many times do we have to talk about the first vision accounts? Because to me, this has been such a non-issue. Like, for the longest time, I've read the different accounts. I've read the 1830s edition of the Book of Mormon, read the new edition of the Book of Mormon. And to me, at least, and maybe this is just me, I mean, everyone has like their own kind of issues that they bring to the table. To me, it's just a non-issue at all. I like the other accounts of the first vision as well as the 1838 edition. They're awesome. And it's really cool that the church has been very open and published all of them. Like, it's just, anyway. So I was kind of like, okay, this has been rehashed over and over. But apparently, this struck a chord with John Dehlin. I'm setting this up for a long time, Preston. I'm coming. So we're getting there. Okay. But in the new podcast, they linked the reference to D&C 76, which apparently was dictated in 1832 and includes the following passage. And we beheld the glory of the Son, and on the right hand of the Father, and received of his fullness. For we saw him, even on the right hand of God, and we heard the voice bearing record that he is the only begotten of the Father. D&C 76 was written prior to him writing his 1832 first vision account that just says the Lord, and this is very clearly two distinct beings next to each other. In fact, John Dehlin continues, as the 1832 first vision account was apparently written in the summer of 1832, so February versus summer, don't these passages sort of soften, complicate, or possibly kill the idea that Joseph didn't develop the belief in God and Jesus as separate beings? Sorry, let me pull that back up. In the mid-1830s, at a minimum, they show that in early 1832, Joseph was certainly capable of describing God and Jesus as appearing separately in a vision. And don't those passages sort of neutralize many of the concerns? I'm sorry, what is going on here? My mouse is freaking out. Many of the concerns voiced with the discrepancies between the 1832 and 1838 vision, at least descriptions of the visions. And the answer is, it does, John. You're absolutely right. It does soften it. Like, okay, I'm just going to pause there. Preston, I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts because I've been talking for way too long. Give me your thoughts about John Dehlin, the newest LDS apologist.
Well, I don't know about a lot of thoughts, but earlier on when you were talking about the Book of Mormon and how the instances you saw that of corrections to add the Son of God into like 1st and 2nd Nephi, and I'm just thinking, weren't those the last parts added to the Book of Mormon anyway? Because they were from the small plates.
Yep.
And so what he actually first translated is the stuff that wasn't corrected.
Yeah. I mean, there's little like grammar corrections throughout, but like those are the biggest
but
theology corrections. Right.
With this specific correction, and I don't know, I haven't read through the 1830s edition and looked through it, but yeah, that's interesting. I watched this episode as well from Jasmine and her co-hosts, and it was really good.
Yeah.
It was really good. I actually had never really thought about the timing with D&C 76.
Me neither. Yeah.
With those.
I think that's a home
interesting.
run.
Yeah. I have heard people say that they firmly believe John Dehlin will come back and he'll have his Alma the Younger comeback story.
Well, I think in order for that to happen, speaking of business, yeah, John Dehlin's making a lot of money right now, and it would be bad for business for him to go. Actually, you know, he actually might make a lot of money if he came back and became like a faithful podcast. I think a lot of people would start watching it, but I don't know. It's hard to just, in order for him to come back, he'd basically have to quit his job. His job is to bash on, I don't know. I wouldn't characterize it necessarily. I don't know. Sometimes he's bashing, sometimes he's not. So he just lets people bash. Kiori has a super chat. He says, "You can't argue the validity of the Book of Mormon and also complain about its content. Either the book is true and John is wrong, or the book is false and nothing within it matters." Your thoughts, Preston?
Fair. I'm not. I might have to reread that to see what he's actually getting at.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, Kiori, of like this critique that John Dehlin and others have said, where it's like, well, actually, this is my John Dehlin impersonation. Tell me if it's a good one. The doctrine of the family is actually insidious because I can't keep doing it.
That's pretty good. No, that's good. I tried to look away and see if I could hear John Dehlin, and
hey, everyone,
it worked.
I'm John Dehlin. Hi. Anyway, he says the doctrine of the eternal families is insidious because the implication is that your family won't be together forever unless you do X, Y, and Z. And I think that's such a ridiculous, just like not well thought out criticism, because it's like you're presupposing that there's some force that's just going to keep your family together, and the church is like preventing you from I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like, what is the baseline assumption? Because the message of the family, eternal family, is actually one of hope. It's like, hey, look, people die. Like, that's a reality. You can observe this reality in your life. You've had people pass away that you love, I'm sure. Okay? You are separated from your family during that time. It's terrible. It's tragic. The laws of nature are entropy. Things fall apart, right? But because of Jesus, if you do what he has done, if you access the gift of his atonement, then your family can be together forever. What a beautiful thing that is. But then it's like twisted, and they're like, somehow they are assuming that families are just by nature together forever. And somehow it's insidious that, like, how dare you say I have to do something in order for my family to be together forever? It's like, well, of course you have to do something. Like, don't you see? Like, people die. Like, you get separated, and like to be back together, that's the hope of Jesus. Anyway.
Well, and we talk about this in our upcoming video. I think we talk about John Dehlin, right?
Oh, yes, we do.
Thing about the atonement.
There's a teaser right there.
Yeah, I think maybe even not just assuming that families are by default together, is maybe even assuming that this was just kind of arbitrary. Like, God decided that.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
God decided both, right? When what we actually believe. Well, we'll get to this in the video, but what we actually believe is just that God made a way where there wasn't one, right? He made a way for us to have this hope where there wasn't one.
Yeah, it's like, that the car is driving off the cliff and he is outstretching his hand. We just got to grab it, But people are like, how dare you say that, we're not going to, how dare you say we're going to crash unless we grab your hand? It's like,
yeah.
Like, how dare you say we're going to crash? Yeah. It's like, you are. Like, you might disagree with that, but like, it's not insidious for us to say that we have a hand outstretched to, like, that God has a hand outstretched to save you. It's not insidious to suggest that. It's just ridiculous that you would assume that, like, you're not going to crash. Like, I don't know how you can live in this world and not think that there's saving that needs to happen. You know what I mean? It's just crazy. So speaking of that new video, everyone, you need to subscribe to the Marvelous Wonder YouTube channel and to Ether's Elephant, where you're joining forces to create another video. This one's going to be so fun. It's one that I've wanted to make for a long time, and I realized that Preston had some similar thoughts about this particular topic, and so we talked about it in video, and we're basically going to present our thesis. I'm going to tell you what the thesis is. That certain members who've left the church, including John Dehlin, for example, and others, actually have a skewed and incorrect version of the nature of God. And this actually means they're rejecting more of a traditional Christianity version of God instead of the Latter-day Saint revealed, restored gospel version of God. And we bring some receipts to prove, or to kind of demonstrate why we think that, and talk about the implications. It's going to be so fun, so good. So make sure you subscribe. Are you anywhere else? You're just on YouTube, right?
Just YouTube. I don't have time to keep up with anything else.
Yeah.
Just YouTube.
Yeah. Well, any last things that you just had to say,
Not really. I only speak when I have to. So no, I don't have any last thoughts, but thanks for having me on. This was fun.
Yeah. Everyone. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Thank you for participating. Thank you for the super chats. Kiori, shout out to you. And thank you. If you want to contribute, you can always become a member. And as always, we'll catch you in the next one. This is Ether's Elephant and Marvelous Wonder.